Study bassers. While it's very important for you to learn how to tune by ear, most of the time you're probably going to be using an electronic tuner to tune your bass. So in this video, I will explain how electronic tuners work, how to use them, and common problems you might run into when you do use them. There are several different ways that electronic tuners can detect pitch. Some tuners have a microphone that listens for the pitch. So remember, tuners can only detect one note at a time. So these work okay when you're in a very quiet environment with no other instruments or music in the background. And these might come in little boxes or even an app for your phone or tablet. Some tuners you plug your bass into directly or through an output on your bass amp. And that eliminates the noise problem from using a microphone, and it's usually more accurate. Another type of tuner clips onto your instrument, usually on the headstock, and it detects vibrations through your instrument. Where you clip it on your instrument can make a difference in terms of accuracy, so you might try moving it around if it's not working very well. You'll see some tuners that are simply labeled bass tuner or guitar tuner, and then others that are labeled chromatic. So the ones that are marked bass tuner tune only to the common standard tuning notes of the bass, E, A, D, and G. A chromatic tuner tunes to any note of the musical alphabet, and that's what I would recommend for you to get because you never know what else you might want to tune to. So it's much more versatile versus just a bass tuner. Okay, well let's look at how to use your tuner. Most electronic tuner displays work about the same way. They tell you what note you're closest to in the musical alphabet and how above it or below it you are. When the pitch is higher than the note, we describe it as being sharp. And when it's below the note, we describe it as being flat. So maybe you've heard somebody say that the singer was singing flat all night. So that just means that they sang a little bit under where the pitch should have been. How sharp or flat a note is measured in cents. So just like there are 100 cents in a dollar, there are 100 cents in a note. So if a note is 50 cents off, it's halfway between two notes. So most tuners won't tell you what octave you're tuning to. So that can be trouble because if you tune to the next octave up, you might break your string. So what I recommend that you do, if you're just starting out, is loosen your string quite a bit. So that way you know that you're well below the target pitch. So how often should you tune? Well, in the beginning, I recommend that you tune every time you sit down to play. And that's because you need to learn to hear these notes in tune. So your musical development really depends on hearing things in tune. So as you gain experience, you'll know when you're out of tune and you'll know when to tune up. Now, what causes your bass to go out of tune? Well, that's usually something simple like the keys getting bumped, usually inside of your bass case. But it can be things also like the weather changing. So when it's very humid and then the next day is very dry, your bass kind of shifts all around. Now let's go through the process of tuning up with a tuner. Remember, the standard tuning for the 4-string bass, going from the low fat string to the high skinny string, is E, A, D, G. We want this low string to be the note E. So now, what I recommend is first start out with the string very loose. So loosen the string until you know it's well below the target pitch. Now, slowly start turning the tuning key and what you'll see is that we're slowly cycling through the musical alphabet. So there's A flat and now A, and then B flat is next. So we need to get to E. We have B, and then C, and then C sharp or D flat. And then D, now D sharp or E flat. So it's the next note. We need E. almost there. We're just flat. We're just underneath the E. And there we go. We have green on one display, and then we have a green light and 2 arrows on the other display. Now if you were to pass it up, you'd see the other side of E, it would be sharp, and you'd have to loosen the string again. Now you'll tune the other strings the exact same way, so you need to tune the next string to the note A. So if you're underneath, you'd see A flat maybe, and you slowly tune up until you get to the center of A. The next one should be D, and then your top string should be G. Here are a few problems that you might run into with your tuner. So if it's not detecting the pitch, or maybe the needle is jumping around a lot, there's a couple of reasons that might happen. One thing to remember is that tuners can only pick up one pitch at a time. So if you have multiple strings ringing, just even accidentally, the tuner might get confused and not know which one you're trying to tune. Make sure you check that your volume is turned all the way up so that the tuner can hear the note. Your tuner might not work very well if the battery is low. Sometimes your tuner will say that you're in tune, but you can hear that something is still off. So that can happen for a few different reasons. On some tuners, it can be easy to miss the sharp or flat indicator light. So here it might look like D, but it's really D sharp. A common mistake I've seen students make with their tuners is they accidentally change the tuning standard to something other than 440. Well, what is the tuning standard? Well, the tuning standard is just somebody specified that the note A has to equal 440 hertz. And then that means all of the other notes will fall in relationship to that 440 standard. So if you've accidentally changed it, make sure you change it back to 440. Otherwise, all of your notes will be out of tune. Some tuners have something called a key setting. For the bass, this needs to be set to C. What the key setting does is it shifts the notes or transposes the notes up or down from C. You don't need to worry about the key setting for bass. Just make sure that it's set to C. Lastly, if your open strings are in tune but the rest of the notes on your fretboard are off, then that means you need to adjust the intonation on your bass. You can find bass setup information in the gear section on StudyBass. Now that you know how to tune your bass, we can finally start learning how to play it. So in the next part of the StudyBass curriculum, we're going to talk about basic bass playing technique.